and we came up with the idea of custom bourbon. And next thing you know, one of the guys came up with the idea, and he built a piece of equipment that's 12 by 12 inches, goes on the back bar.
Okay.
Somebody else then connected to somebody at the Eureka Ranch, a programmer guy, and they built an AI app where you answer 13 questions and it creates your custom bourbon.
No way.
You scan the QR code and you get your bourbon customized to you by the glass at your bar, at your country club.
That is not stupid. Can we get that for the office?
Let's go!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project podcast. And today we have Doug Hall, founder of Eureka Ranch and Brew Distillery. Mr. Hall, welcome to the podcast. Now,
thank you so much for having me.
I've been looking forward to this all week. I got to tell you, we have to start with, I defined you earlier in the green room, the modern day Archimedes. You are a Renaissance man, inventor, founder. Tell us, how did you transition from an illustrious career of Procter Gamble to being your own entrepreneur and philosopher of invention?
Well, I mean, what's interesting about it is I actually, at around age 12, I created a Learn to Juggle kit and Boo Boo Balloon animal kits, and I started my first business.
Wait, hold on a second. And what did you invent at 12 years old?
A juggling kit, a Learn to Juggle kit, and Boo Boo Balloon animal kits that you could make balloon animals from. And I started doing it, and I said it was a lot more fun than flipping burgers at McDonald's. Not to disrespect McDonald's, but
yeah, I'd say so.
And it was also cooler. The girls liked that. They thought it was pretty cool that, that I had a business. And so I went, and I wanted to be an inventor. My dad said, "Oh, Jesus, doesn't sound good. I can't see this, And he says, maybe you should be a patent attorney, and engineers become patent examiners. I said, okay, well, I don't know. So I took chemical engineering, and I quickly learned that this was not going to be for me, but I loved the science. I was so curious. I've always been curious. And I got into it, and I graduated, and I was getting ready to go to an oil company or something. And then I found Procter Gamble had this brand management thing where your job was like the monkey in the middle. You were the one that interfaced between sales, product development, finance, to put together ideas for growing the business, for growing the brand that you were working on. And so I went into marketing and for brand management, and I stayed there for 10 years and applied systems thinking, which my dad had worked with Dr. Deming, who's a big guru that went to Japan and created Toyota and Sony and all that. And he famously said 94% of the problems is the system, 6% is the worker. And so I applied systems thinking to growing businesses. And it worked. And I shipped 9 products in 12 months with a team of 3, which is still a record. And it wasn't because we were smarter, because I graduated with a 2-point-something, okay? But it was because we applied systems thinking. We thought of it as a system. And instead of beating the workers up and yelling at them, we worked on building better work systems for how we did things. And that worked. And then one January, I looked up every 6 months and said, am I smarter than I was 6 months ago? And one January I wasn't. So I retired from the corporate life and created the Eureka Ranch.
But before you retired, Procter & Gamble is a household name. We all know it, and probably our pantries are filled with those products. Give us an idea of some of the products and inventions you worked on that ended up in our pantry and ultimately in our belly.
Coast soap, spick and span, pine liquid, a Safeguard, Sunny Delight.
Oh, wow. So
you just kind of keep going through all of them.
You're responsible for
Hawaiian Punch.
You're responsible for a big slice of Americana.
Folgers coffee. Yeah. So I worked on a lot of things. Sometimes they were new products for them, and sometimes they were renovations where a business, because let's face it, there's a life cycle to everything.
Sure.
And smart entrepreneurs know this, and they know my view is about every 10 years, I have to reinvent myself And when I reinvent myself, I reinvent my business. And sometimes people say, well, and and this last one, this is a big one. This change that's happened the last since January. It's pretty chaotic what's happening, but that's fine. Don't whine, no whining. You just take advantage of it. And so, I've got a whiskey business where we've got some cool technology. And here's an example. I can make my Dexter bourbon that we make is one of the 12 best bourbons in the world. Okay, outstanding, world-class product. As good as you're gonna, as good at bourbon as you're gonna get.
Okay.
And so we were selling the company and pitching people based on that. Well, then the economy went, the world went crazy.
That's a technical term, right?
It's a mess because you can't ship. You got tariffs, so international markets have blown up, and it's just a mess.
Where is your bourbon made?
What's that?
Where is your bourbon made?
Cincinnati.
Okay.
Cincinnati. And we have a system called Woodcraft Finishing, which allows us to get exceptional quality whiskey at a much younger age. Like, we can make product that 1 and 2 year product that beats 12 and 18 year product. Okay. Seriously, like 70-30, 60-30.
Without giving us a special sauce, is it the contents of the barrel? Is it the temperature?
We basically replicate nature with incredible control over quality. So we drive out variation. Instead of having hot summers and cold summers, we put the wood in the whiskey and we heat it and cool it, controlling it within 1/10 of a degree.
Amazing.
And this process, so to the pivot to today's world, when it's all of a sudden crazy, now finance is important, right? And so we can cut your working capital by 90% and cut the cost of the aged spirit by 54%. And so where we used to be selling on quality and to have world-class 96, 97, 98 point scores, I mean, just like ridiculous scores, today's customer, that's not what they're worried about. They're worried about having enough cash because it costs a lot of money to create a whiskey with all the barrels and the working capital that you need.
Sure.
And so now my entire presentation and pitch to customers has gone from the best whiskey in the world. That was number one with you could save money. Now it's flipped. Save money. And oh, by the way, it'll be the best whiskey in the world.
So now,
because
let me
that's
ask you,
the way the world's changed.
But how do you market that, right? Because there is a clientele that likes to go to the bar and looks at the top shelf and says, well, I'll have the blank 18 or the blank 25, but you're able to sell
Different story.
Okay.
Different story.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. To the consumer, it's finished with 200-year vintage oak, and we've got a story. I'm talking about to selling it to, so we do a lot of work for other distilleries.
Yes.
To the distilleries, they don't care about that foo-foo crap. They care about, can I make any money, and how the hell am I going to pay the bills because I got so much cash tied up in barrels. So it's a B2B sale, not a B2C sale. Now, we have products that are B2C sale, in which case, 200-year vintage wood finished with cherry, maple, and all that smoke and mirrors bullshit that the industry uses. But it's very different when it's B2B. With B2B, there's a different benefit, and they have different problems than the consumer does.
So let me ask you this. You're working with Procter Gamble, and you're working with a whole host of consumer goods, but you find a niche in fermented beverages. Was that just a personal preference, or was that just haphazard?
Well, I started at P&G, but then when I got out of P&G, consumer products started to bore me because I'd done them so much. So I got really into services, digital businesses, B2B, industrial. And so the Eureka Ranch is really only about 20% consumer products. 80% is all these others. And part of it is I was curious to see how these industries worked. And it's been a riot. And what's interesting is, with consumer goods, you spend a bunch of money in advertising, you can make it work. In B2B, you got to cut the BS out of it. You can't have too much smoke and mirrors. They want to know what's in it for them, and does it work, and will it make a difference for them? So it's a very different pitch. When I say I can cut your working capital by 90%, I get your attention in a B2B world.
Oh, that's huge.
And so it's a matter, you got to be, entrepreneurs out there, you got to really think about the customer that you're selling. What's in it for them? What are you going to do that's going to make their life better? That's what we're looking for.
All right, we're on to something here. So you're also the founder of Eureka Ranch. Tell the audience what Eureka Ranch is and what it means to industry at large.
Okay, so I mean, I've been doing it for 40 years. In the early days, it was the big idea people. It was Eureka with an exclamation point. Nike, Disney, American Express, this American Express Centurion card that was created at the ranch. And then the ideas were so cool, they came back a month later and said, can you help us figure out how to execute them?
Wait, hold on.
Really cool.
The Amex Centurion card was a brainchild of the Eureka Ranch?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's here. I got one of them here. $5,000 credit card. Yeah,
you could have gotten one for free for all the work you put into it.
Well, they did. They gave it to me in the beginning, but they're good folks. And so I got excited about that. But then, as time's gone on, the world changes. Okay, you don't start a business and do the same thing you were doing for 40 years. Anybody that does is somebody that's out of business. You know, and I say every 10 years I've reinvented. And today, in today's world, what we're seeing is the bigger problem they've got is when an idea goes into development, it loses 50% of its value from having the original idea to when it goes to market because it's different. And so the teams compromise on the idea. They keep, make it less and less and less until it's really not worth doing. And so the problem is we need everybody to innovate, not just the inventor who creates it, the people that engineer it, that manufacture it, that produce it, that do the idea. You need everybody thinking creatively. And so that's what put me on a focus to say, if I can invent ideas, can I invent in a way to get employee engagement? Can we invent a way to get people to be able to create solutions to the crazy problems that they're facing and to problem solve it? And that's what created the book, Proactive Problem Solving courses that we teach in it.
So which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is it wonderful people excel with wonderful systems and processes, or do wonderful systems and processes make wonderful people?
Systems create great people.
That's awesome.
If you don't have a good system, you are setting somebody up for failure.
Okay, so
systems make great people.
So our audience consists of all sorts of small to medium-sized business owners in all different trades. Can you give us a couple of steps on how someone can implement great systems and processes in a limited amount of time within their business? Like a Eureka do-it-yourself solution.
Yeah. So the simple way to say you want to fix a system.
Yes.
You got a broken system. And we know there's a lot of them because the research says the average manager wastes 3.5 hours a day on employee mistakes and broken systems, of which 80% of this is the broken systems.
Wow.
Okay.
You extrapolate that over a 40-hour work
crazy.
Week.
It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. And I've told that, I've spoken all over around the world, and I'm yet to have anybody, because when they first came up with, we have a statistician that works for me, and he did the research, and I said, oh, that can't be right. Do it again. He did it again. It came back the same. And I said, well, okay, let's go talk to people. I started talking to people. Nobody said that we're excessive. They say we're light.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's that messed up. And people are working hard to get around these systems and to make it work. So if you want to fix a system, the first thing to do is the leadership has to define, and this is real important, what the system is and why it's important that we make it better. Because you got to give them the why.
Okay.
Because that really creates intrinsic motivation. Why is this very, very important?
Okay. So number one is definition. What's number two?
Yeah. Definition of what and why. Then you map the system. You define the system in some simple boxes as to what is the system. This goes to this, to this. Think of a simple flow chart.
Yes.
Next, we look at variation. Where is there variation in that system? And we look at what's called special cause and common cause. I explain in proactive problem solving, but we're looking for where's there a high variation. It may be that we got a lot of variation on the front end depending upon who's working it. And then we look at it and go, well, they were all trained differently. So let's get them all trained the same. Or it may be raw materials are coming in that have high variance. Okay. Or maybe deliveries are coming in at different times. And sometimes so the person's, they're trying to produce something and the inventory is not there for them to work with, the raw materials. They look like a failure, but it really was a failure of the vendor to not get it there on time. You look for the variation and you look for ways you can reduce that variation. And then number 3 is you look at this for the psychology. Because what you want to get, and this is a little bit out there, but you can't bribe people to do a good job.
Sure. They've got to buy into it.
It's got to be intrinsic. Right? You're exactly right. It has to come from within them. And so you got to look at it and say, am I developing pride of work? Are we allowing employees to really do their job? Or have we set them up to fail, not given them the right tools, not given them the right equipment to do the job or the right work process? And so they're frustrated. And then lastly, you'd use the Deming cycle. It's called plan, do, study, act. You say, okay, here's my system. Here's where I think there's variation. Here's where I think there's negative psychology that's not working for us. Maybe there's issues between 2 departments or whatever it is, which we've got to just stop. Get over it, folks. We're on the same team here. And then you have to start some experiments. And so you put together a plan, your hypothesis. I think I could fix it if I do this. And then you do it. Then you study it. What did you learn? And then you act. And usually you'll go back and you'll do 2 or 3 cycles and you'll improve the system. And the way we start the whole process, because what I'm explaining, I can see the listeners out there in their head, they're saying, yeah, right, my people are going to do stuff like that. No chance. Because people are kind of checked out. Young people are a problem. All of the issues, I heard them all.
How about top performers? Like someone that says, look, I'm number 1 in sales. I've been number 1 in sales for years. I am the best this, I am the fastest that. I don't need systems of processes. I know what I'm doing. How do you have that person relate to these SOPs?
Well, they're useful to you, but they're also destructive to you. Because people like that tend to not be team players. They're in it for themselves.
Sure.
And this is I've got a client, mid-sized company, and those kind of people almost put them out of business. And the CEO brought me in and he says, I've got to change my sales system. He says, I've got to really change it.
Mostly women.
Because I'm held hostage right now by those people. And I don't like it. And
13.
I want to get a lot bigger, and they're
the
happy because they're making a lot of money.
But,
so
aside from that,
working with him,
the reason I got into the hair industry was to be around women. I want to be around people.
We built a new sales system, stood it up in 6 months, and they went from having $5 million in their pipeline, their sales pipeline, to $50 million in their pipeline. Okay? That's what happened when we said, okay, it's Rockstar, you're cool, but we need a reliable, reproducible system. And so we did division of labor in the sales force. A lot of elements to this. It's a lot to it.
I also imagine
that I'm telling you, when you do systems, you crush it. And you can also go on vacation. If everything turns around you, the owner, you're screwed. You can't go on vacation.
I also imagine,
if you've got systems, you can depend on it.
Yeah, but by putting those systems in place, I also imagine you're probably developing a more engaged culture within your team.
Monstrously. And the savings you can get. So the best practice, we start the process by working with frontline employees. And we tell them our original focus is going to be on stop the stupid. Do you have anything stupid in your work that prevents you from doing your job?
Yeah.
That gets in your way.
Sure.
And everybody's got them.
Of course.
And stop the stupid gets them engaged. And then they get some wins and they feel a benefit. So let me give you a simple example. A company that manufactures cleaning equipment, industrial cleaning equipment, that cleans bathrooms and stuff. I went in and I'm talking and I'm leading a session for them. And I said, anybody got anything stupid going on? Lady puts her hand up. She says, my back hurts. I said, how long's your back hurt? Oh, she says about 9 years. 9 years? That's stupid. She says, you're telling me. I said, why does your back hurt? She says, well, I assemble the machines and I'm not very big, as you can see. And then I have to lift them up and put them in the box. And when we have a big week of production, my back hurts. So I stopped the training, and it's just a quick training, a day we take with them. I got her team leader, and I said, how can we help her back not hurt? We started to talk about it. We used some of the techniques we taught them, did all of that stuff. 15 minutes. All of a sudden, an idea came up that in another part of the factory, instead of having a box that you put the unit in, you rolled the unit onto the cardboard, and then you built the box around it. Eureka. No back hurting. No back hurting anymore. Vaporize the problem. Now she's engaged. And you start to do these and call them stupid, call them ankle biters, call them what you want. And people get a momentum, and then they get pride of work because they know they changed something. They did something. And because people don't go into work to do stupid stuff, they want to make a difference. And sure enough, now you can start moving on proactive. You can start working on bigger things. And now you've got a different culture. That's how you change your culture.
Now, once you've changed that culture, I'm a big proponent of if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. How do you track the impact that your SOPs have put in place? I'm certain you've put metric tracking as part of the growth of certain firms.
Yeah. So what we do is it's very important that you pick the system metric, the one metric. And so we've defined engagement as the key to this whole thing. And that is the number of ideas created and taken action on per employee. Okay. The aspirational goal is 10 ideas per employee per year. Now, we know the average value of those ideas in that organization. We've got that. What I don't track is how much we've saved, because that creates gaming of the savings. They use funky estimates and all that. What I want to track is have employees said, I see a problem, I got an idea. I work with my manager to run some plan, do, study, act, or fail fast, fail cheap cycles. And then we implement changes to the SOP.
Like,
we start out, we call it a POP, a pilot operating procedure.
On like
so to reduce the stress and make them simpler to do. Because if employees are making changes,
you're not what you used to be. So
I know we're going to get all the
viewers anymore. That's why my views have
because
plummeted.
We want to make sure that we put metrics in that don't
go back
get
to some of your old school stuff.
That's what they'll do. You put in numbers, they will give you your numbers, whether it's the right thing or not. And so what we do is we focus on employees taking action, because if you get that, everything else is good. And in fact, I've got data here that shows the numbers on this are exponential of what happens.
I love using case studies, and here at the Liquid Lunch, we love case studies to use as different applications and implications for those SOPs. Let's talk about a business that is near and dear to your heart. Give us some examples on the stop the stupid techniques you've applied to Brew Distillery.
Okay. So one of the problems that we had is there are 4 companies, gigantic titans, that during Prohibition had medicinal alcohol permits.
Okay.
So they were making booze during Prohibition. So when Prohibition ended, they took over, and they still own the industry today. They own like 90% of the industry.
So who are these 4 monsters?
Oh, these are Diageo and I mean, big companies. So what we did, one of the places that's a problem for us is what's called on-premise, bars and restaurants, because they give them a lot of change.
Yes,
okay?
Understood.
They give them cash.
Understood.
And they got truckloads, and I don't have truckloads, nor do I want to spend truckloads and lose money, okay? So I got the team together, the guys and gals, and I said, we got to figure out, this is stupid. We're not going to go into these bars and start paying money to be on the drink menu. We're not going to be taking people on trips. Ain't going to happen. That's not how we work. It's unethical. Plus, it's just plain stupid. Okay? So how can we get this so cool that we don't have to do that. And we use the tools that we've got from Eureka Ranch. We use the tools to invent ideas. And we came up with the idea of custom bourbon. And next thing you know, one of the guys came up with the idea, and he built a piece of equipment that's 12 by 12 inches, goes on the back bar.
Okay.
Somebody else then connected to somebody at the Eureka Ranch, a programmer guy, and they built an AI app where you answer 13 questions and it creates your custom bourbon.
No way.
You scan the QR code and you get your bourbon customized to you by the glass at your bar, at your country club.
That is not stupid. Can we get that for the office?
Is that wicked? Is that wicked?
Okay, but wait. Okay, but I imagine there's got to be ingredients.
They have to pay for the machine. They have to buy the machine. We don't have to give them money. They give us money.
But I imagine there's got to be some sort of ingredient input, no? Or is it this magic box makes everything?
Bourbons. Yeah, we have 200-year oak, American oak, European oak, cherry wood, maple wood, and smoked. And so it basically, it's like Johnny Walker used to be, a barrel blender. And you the machine mixes them to exactly your taste profile.
This is awesome. So now these bars and hotels they have a branded product.
It's wicked. It's incredible. The bartender can now have a different bourbon for every one of their cocktails. You know, they make their cocktails, their foo-foo cocktails.
Yep.
Now they can actually craft the bourbon for it.
Is there any intellectual property behind this magic box?
We have patents in 45 countries.
Well, what's this magic box called?
Well, the machine right now is called Dexter 1862 is what it is. And it's Edmund Dexter. That's our flagship brand, Dexter. And that was the brand. So he was basically the Johnny Walker of America.
Edmund Dexter.
Yeah, Edmund Dexter.
Oh, what a great invention. Doug, what is your most proud invention if you look back on your illustrious career?
49 years with my girlfriend.
I hope she wasn't proud
and happy. and really happy too. So I guess I got to call that one. I got to call that one because it is. She's an amazing lady and has put up with my craziness because as an entrepreneur, you know, we're whacked.
My partner Matt and I say this all the time. Being married to an entrepreneur or a business owner is it's a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift.
It's an adventure. Not boring. Never boring.
All right. Can you please tell the audience where they could find your wonderful book, Proactive Problem Solving, and how they can reach out to you at Eureka Ranch?
You can get Proactive Problem Solving on all of the, bookstore chains and online stuff. But if you want to learn more, in fact, there's the intro to it. You can download it. Just go to really simple now, Doug Hall, DougHall.com. And just DougHall.com. And that's it. And you can get there. As you can see, I've written 8 books and you can get all kinds of info on what we do and how we work and all that stuff.
So Doug, this is the part of the podcast where my partner Matt would say, all right, you're going to do your Lou and start overanalyzing things. So he's not here to shut me up. So I'm going to go for this. So you named your business Eureka after Archimedes. Right. You live in a city, Cincinnati, named after Cincinnatus.
Yeah.
Obviously, history is important to you, right? And legacy is important to you. What's next in your career? Because everything you touch, man, you're like Midas. It turns to gold.
Oh, yeah. And in between there, I played the role of Simon Cowell on American Inventor, and I've done a couple TV shows and other crazy things because I have a lot of energy. I am really fired up. I can invent a big idea. You got a big problem. That's not a big deal. We can do that. Okay. That's easy. But changing cultures, changing people, helping people believe that they can make a difference. There's a friend of mine here. He's got a small bakery, And I helped him get his first patent, which changed his economic model, got him partnerships with people he would never have gotten to, and a life change for him. And so helping entrepreneurs, helping the working people on the front line of big organizations find joy in work, real joy. I'm just kind of fired up more about changing people. Yeah, I can do products, and that's fine. But it's the people stuff that really is firing me up, because people have so much more potential than what they realize. And that's why we have a curriculum, the innovation engineering, that we teach on campus. We have universities that teach it. And so I'll go spend a semester living on campus. But I guess that's kind of a normal thing. You get to become an old fart, and you like to become a teacher. It's the wisdom thing.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy liberating people, so that finding out that they can do great things,
Doug, well, you fired us up, my man. Thank you so much for joining us on the Liquid Lunch Project podcast. It's been a pleasure. Folks, that's another episode. See you next week.
Let's go.